rudely cut off. That was my point. That was my brilliant point.
But I thought you said that's no east, whatever.
7:15, Big 550 KTRS. Jim Kavanaugh, co-founder of Worldwide Technology, joins us from a secured bunker. Good morning, Mr. Jim Kavanaugh. How are you?
Good morning, McGraw. How are you? I'm doing well.
Great. So explain to us what you guys announced yesterday.
What we announced was what we've been working on for probably 8 or 9 months now. So we basically were spent the time putting together an investment group, an investor group that has the financial wherewithal to invest, in bringing an MLS team, and that's to pay for a franchise, to operate the team. That means, salaries, operations, marketing, all that stuff. And then also build a specific stadium. So those are the three big legs, or big foundational pieces that you need to bring a team. So through that process, you also need to be working with the MLS. And we have spent a lot of time over the last several months walking through the ownership group, the investment group, and our plans with Don Garber, the commissioner of the MLS, and his team. And then we've basically come to a high-level agreement that they are supportive of our plan, the investment group, and they love St. Louis. So that's where we are at a very high level. Well, let me stop there and see that pretty much. Yeah, you kind of see how that.
So I want to touch on this high level agreement with the MLS. So is it sort of an implied endorsement that assuming the stadium gets built or a deal is struck with the city and the officials and all systems go on the stadium, that the MLS has sort of basically anointed you guys as, yes, this is what they want to do?
Correct. And it's actually, it's quite an extensive process. It's the investor group, we actually went out and met with the board of governors, which is all the owners of the league, several months ago. They vet out basically the group, your financial wherewithal, your ability to own and operate teams, your experience, financial and business experience, both, general business, but also in the world of sports. So just to get their support is not an easy thing to do. And then you have to come in and, show them, basically kind of walk through the high level plan that you have to put all this together. So at the end of the day, that group has blessed, endorsed, and I think is very excited about the group that we have together to do this. The reason we wouldn't put, dot the final I's and T's and put this all into a nice bow from a contractual perspective is because we still have a contingency on the stadium financing. So our goal is by the 1st of April, as we're working with members of the city, to put together some public financing that would be supported by private funding, that we would get that approval, and then we would go full steam ahead with all the final, T's and C's and legal arrangement with the MLS. So that's really the one issue.
So you're not popping the champagne yet, but you're ordering it?
That's a good way to look at it. We are, to that point, we are moving forward. We're investing in people, time, and resource to go put all this together. And if we didn't have the support of the MLS, that's why it was a big move to get, and you can see through the quotes and the support and the endorsement of Don Garber coming in, the commissioner, and his team, who will be coming in a couple of weeks. We wouldn't be going and putting the next step of all this time, money, and effort into doing this if we weren't highly confident that we could get it done.
Jim Kavanaugh, our guest, talking about the major announcement that this ownership group announces plans to work towards an MLS expansion team. What type of conversations have you had with the city? Mayor Slay ending his reign as mayor. The next mayor hasn't been elected yet. So how are you working with the city to get this done?
Yes. So part of our team, it's I'm part of it locally here. Dave Peacock's also involved, and Dave is spending some time on some of this. Both of us working with the mayor and his team. So the mayor has been very, very supportive, and without going into too much detail exactly how the funding would work, I don't think it would be appropriate to go into the detail because it's still being worked out. But the net of it is that he is very supportive. His staff and his team is very supportive. They want to get this done, and we all believe that we are very comfortable going to a vote on this. So we know there's some issues with the potentially the way things were handled, or just get the overall NFL process with losing the Rams. There's obviously people that very unhappy about that, and I agree and understand. So we're working through that process. We're comfortable with going to a vote because people do need to support this, not just short term, but long term. So that's kind of where we are.
Right. Now we're talking like 2020, right? 2021. So it is still a couple of years away,
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Right.
And go ahead.
No. But yet timeline. This needs to start doing. You mentioned April, right? Because you need to get the agreements to start building it. You have to. It takes a few years to build a stadium.
Correct. And so the nice thing that I see is that we, to your point, it does take time to finalize drawings and engineering and all the bidding process and get all that taken care of and then get it underway and get the stadium built. So that's going to take a couple of years. So we're looking at first year to play would be 2020 or 2021. Right now we're projecting 2021 if things went really well and everything, came into alignment. Maybe it happens a little earlier. The other nice thing that we really like about the structure that we have and that the MLS likes is that we have what I think is kind of an optimal soccer pyramid or best-in-class structure in place that we can start putting into play as we speak. And that is, I'm the chairman of the St. Louis Scott Gallagher Soccer Club and the St. Louis FC USL professional team that we have here in St. Louis. Those two organizations and its members and its following and fans will move right under this MLS organization, and we'll almost do that immediately. And so what we're doing is we're creating a structure that if you go look at a lot of the other cities, the MLS cities, they've been working, some of them have MLS teams have been working for years trying to put that foundation in place underneath the MLS team. And it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. So I think we'll be way ahead of the game in regards to having a fully operational, functional, running organization that will basically integrate and hit the ground, just as I said, running when we hit the first game at the MLS.
Jim Kavanaugh, co-founder and CEO of Worldwide Technology. You're from St. Louis. You've built a business here. You've invested in the community. As you said, you've invested in soccer. You brought this St. Louis FC here to town. St. Louis is a huge hotbed of soccer. But put into perspective what this does for the region, because this isn't just a St. Louis soccer story. I don't know much about soccer, but I know enough to know that this is a big shot in the arm for a region that really needs a good couple of good stories here the last couple of years.
I agree, and that's another big reason that I'm excited about this. Is it's not just about soccer. I think it doesn't have to be, but I think it certainly helps when the ownership group is focused not only on the sport that they're passionate about, but they're focused on doing the right things and giving back to the community. And So I think if done correctly, I think bringing this can bring a lot of energy to St. Louis. I think it can bring some economic development. I think it can bring another professional sports team that, from my belief and there's a lot of data that shows this, that soccer is probably the fastest growing sport out there, and definitely the most global. So if you look at the way that soccer is basically attracting such a strong the millennial group, and so when you look into the future, that group is going to continue to grow, and so that kind of grassroots development of fan base is very powerful. But I also think, going back to the point, is that it's important that the investor group is not only invested in building out a quality sporting franchise, but they're also focused on doing the right thing and giving back to the community. I just think that's very
Jim Cavanaugh, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot between now and then. Co-founder and CEO of Worldwide Technology, Jim Cavanaugh, announcing the MLS group and their intentions to bring an MLS expansion team to St. Louis. Jim Cavanaugh, thanks for coming in early on a very busy morning for us.
Thanks, McGraw. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. Jim Cavanaugh here on the Big 550 KTRS. I think the best. All right, he said they're ordering the champagne, but they're not popping the corks yet.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
he made a really great point too, how Major League Soccer is a world sport.
Yeah. No.
And that can mean so much for St. Louis.
Yeah, interesting. Big news. So it's not, we weren't awarded an MLS team, but you can't get any closer.
Yeah.
To being awarded a team. This is why you don't want to oversell it, but you certainly don't want to undersell it.
Right.
That's Jim Cavanaugh. If you missed any of that, we'll get it up on the web. The video and the audio will be up on the web here at KTRS.com shortly. And then Bill McDermott, who is still running around jumping for joy over the news, he'll join us in the 9 o'clock hour to get his perspective on this. A longtime soccer fan, analyst, has done just about everything in the world of soccer. So we'll check in with him in the 9 o'clock hour. 7:27 here. Big